Hey guys, tonight we're stepping out beneath a blindingly hot sun, one of those ancient, unforgiving Middle Eastern skies that presses down on your shoulders like a wet wool blanket. You're somewhere on the Persian plateau, your sandals sinking a little into the baked clay of a narrow alley, and every surface you touch radiates that slow-cooked desert heat. The air barely moves. The horizon shimmers. The only relief? That mysterious cool draft seeping out of a mud brick doorway, brushing your cheeks like a whispered secret. You take a step toward it, curious. This, you realize, is no trick of the breeze. It's the quiet hum of engineering, Persian style. And just to be clear, you probably wouldn't survive this day. Not in your current, fan-pampered, iced drink-sipping state. These people did without AC, without refrigerators, without even the luxury of popping open a window when it got stuffy. And yet, somehow, they kept their homes cool enough to nap in during a 45 degrees Celsius summer afternoon. That alone makes them more advanced than most landlords you've ever dealt with. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when people are drifting off around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle slowly down a narrow lane in ancient Yazd, your fingers trailing along the dusty, sun-bleached walls. The buildings on either side of you rise like clay cliffs, their pale tan surfaces absorbing the sunlight without a hint of shadow. But then, your eyes drift upward. From almost every rooftop, strange vertical structures rise, towers with slits and vents like chimneys that breathe inward. These are badgir, wind catchers. Not just decorative, not ceremonial. They are essential. Persia, known today largely as Iran, was a land of extremes, biting winters in the mountains, infernal summers in the central deserts. For thousands of years, Persian architects didn't just endure the climate, they outsmarted it. The earliest known use of wind catchers dates back to around 3,000 years ago, and they became a defining feature in desert cities like Yazd, Kerman, and Kashan. The idea was simple: harvest the slightest whisper of wind and funnel it into a home's interior, where it would swirl and drop, cooling the space like a natural fan. It sounds like magic, but it's pure physics. As you pause in a shaded courtyard, you feel that slight, blessed breeze drifting through again. Historians still argue whether the original concept came from necessity or experimentation. Was the first wind tower an accident? Or the product of some ancient, sleepless genius lying awake in a sweltering room, imagining the impossible? Your host tonight is invisible, but present. A master bricklayer named Arash, who's halfway up a bamboo scaffold, stacking hand-formed mud bricks into the rising shaft of yet another badgir. His turban's soaked, his hands move slow and deliberate, but he hums as he works. Because this tower isn't just about survival, it's a form of pride. The higher the tower, the more respected the household. And unlike that clunky fan you forgot to clean back home, this system never breaks down. Inside the house, the floor plan is a quiet marvel of logic and tradition. Thick adobe walls act like thermal batteries, soaking in heat during the day, releasing it at night. Courtyards planted with trees and little pools help regulate temperature. Ceilings are high, air moves freely, and the floors are often coated in smooth plaster or tiles, anything to stay cool to the touch. You notice that even the cushions are set directly on the floor, where it's coolest. These aren't just aesthetic choices. They're strategies. And here comes your quirky tidbit of the evening. Ancient Persians sometimes stored snow, actual snow, in the desert. They built domed ice houses called yakchal, where massive blocks of winter ice could survive well into the scorching heart of summer. They'd transport the snow from mountaintops at night using insulated camel trains and store it deep in cone-shaped pits lined with insulating mud and ash. Ice cream, anyone? As you wander slowly from room to room, ducking under carved archways and running your fingers along tiled mosaics, you begin to appreciate the brilliance of a people who solved heat, not with wires and motors, but with mud, geometry, and patience. They didn't fight the climate. They shaped the air itself. You step once more into the central courtyard, and the wind tower sighs again, like a desert ghost, long at peace. No humming, no buzzing, no mechanical drone, just the soft, consistent whisper of air traveling down through a stone throat that knows its purpose. You tilt your head back and stare up at the towering Badgir, letting your eyes follow its fluted ridges to the top, where open slats wait patiently for the smallest shift in the wind. You imagine standing there, feeling the breeze hit your face, and then watching it vanish into the hollow vertical shaft, drawn down not by magic, but by the subtle difference between outside and inside pressure. It's passive cooling, the kind your electricity bill dreams about. The design of these towers is deceptively clever. Some are four-sided, catching wind from any direction. Others are directional, like a nose turned toward the breeze. A well-placed tower will scoop up the wind, guide it through narrow passages that compress and accelerate the air, and push it down into the rooms below. As it flows, it displaces the hotter, heavier air already inside. That stale heat then escapes through other vents or courtyards. It's a full-cycle, self-sustaining system. No fans, no buttons, no plugs, and it works. You step into a room directly beneath one of these towers and feel that unmistakable coolness across your skin. It's not chilly, just comfortable, gentle, like the moment right before a thunderstorm when the air shifts. You exhale deeply and sink into a cushion by the wall, letting the wind do what it's done for centuries. The materials help too. Mud brick is full of tiny air pockets that insulate remarkably well. Wooden louvers in the tower's vents can be adjusted seasonally. In some cities, builders added small pools or wet cloths just beneath the shaft, turning simple airflow into evaporative cooling, nature's version of air conditioning. It's the same trick your body uses when it sweats, only here, the house is the one perspiring. Now, here's one of those mainstream historical facts that sounds more modern than it should. In the city of Yazd, UNESCO recognized these wind towers as part of a World Heritage Site, not just for their beauty, but for their role in sustainable architecture. Persian engineers were not only building for comfort, they were building with ecology in mind, centuries before green building became a buzzword. And of course, we have to pause for a quirky fringe theory. One popular belief, though debated heavily by scholars, is that some ancient Badgir may have also been used to channel scent. That's right, aromatherapy towers. Certain homes, it said, placed flowering herbs or bowls of rosewater near the base of the wind shaft, so the air drifting in would be both cooler and pleasantly fragrant. Was it practical, decorative, symbolic? Historians still argue whether this was widespread or a fanciful exaggeration from later poets who maybe got a little too into their metaphors. You glance over at the tower again and picture the ancient hands that built it. Each brick shaped by someone who probably had no idea their work would still be standing 500, 800, even 1,000 years later. And if you think that's impressive, consider this. Some structures had 2 towers, not one. Depending on the wind's direction and the time of year, households would open one and block the other, fine-tuning their internal climate like ancient thermostats. Even the tower's shape evolved. Rounded forms worked better in sandstorms. Squared towers handled steady summer breezes. Some elite homes boasted towers that were elaborately decorated, with painted tiles and carved stucco, cooling with style, if you will. It wasn't just function, it was elegance. The kind of quiet, thoughtful design that whispers luxury without shouting it. And now you're probably wondering, could they cool more than just houses? They could, and they did. In the next moment, you find yourself walking past a public bathhouse, steam lazily curling from its domed rooftop vents. You'd think this place would be sweltering in the middle of a Persian summer, but no. The Badgir towers here work in reverse. Hot air from the baths rises, and the tower helps pull it out. Fresh air flows in from ground-level vents, balancing the temperature and keeping even the steamiest rooms breathable. It's this same principle that made these towers adaptable across different climates. In cooler seasons, some towers could be blocked off, turning homes into efficient heat traps. In mountainous regions, variations of the Badgir helped retain warmth instead of dispersing it. The design wasn't one size fits all. It evolved with the needs of the landscape and the people. And speaking of people, you're beginning to realize that almost every building you pass has one of these towers peeking up like a periscope. Rich or poor, grand or modest, the technology wasn't hoarded. It was part of the vernacular. That, perhaps, is what makes it so revolutionary. Not the science itself, but the fact that it was democratic. Comfort, it seems, wasn't reserved only for the royal courtyards. The wind stirs again. You close your eyes. In the hush of the late afternoon, the sound of air rushing down the tower, you blink slowly, eyes adjusting to the golden hush of late afternoon as you drift into the deeper maze of the city. You've passed the homes, you've seen the towers, and now you're curious about the hidden workings of this silent technology. You duck beneath an archway and step into a larger structure, its shaded interior vast and hushed. This is no simple house. It's something grander. Maybe a caravanserai, where traders once rested. Maybe a school, or even a small palace. Either way, it's the perfect place to unravel the deeper mechanics of Persian cooling ingenuity. Let's start with what seems impossible. Ice. In the desert. Imagine a moonlit night in ancient Iran. The desert radiates back all the heat it stored during the day, and the air cools rapidly. Persian engineers knew this and designed open-air basins, shallow pools of water, surrounded by insulating walls made of adobe and ash. These basins, paired with the frigid nighttime air, would sometimes allow thin layers of ice to form. In winter, larger blocks of ice would be harvested from nearby mountains and stored deep underground in yakchals, dome-shaped structures with conical pits that kept ice frozen into the blistering summer months. You descend now into one of these yakchals, the air suddenly cool and still, like stepping inside a whisper. The walls slope above you, covered in a special mix of clay, egg whites, and ash, water-resistant and perfectly insulating. No drafts, no sunlight, just the cool breath of the earth itself, holding on to winter like a secret. Back above ground, your gaze shifts once more to the wind towers. While most of them function passively, without moving parts, some advanced designs introduced clever additions. One variant included vertical shafts that not only directed wind downward, but also used interior vanes to push stale air up and out. Another combined the Badgir with an underground canal system known as a qanat, tunnels that brought cold water from distant sources directly beneath the home. As wind was drawn down into the building, it passed over the cool, moist surface of the Qanat channel, losing heat through evaporation. This double cooling method, air plus water, was particularly prized in wealthier homes. You can imagine reclining on a stone bench above such a channel, the floor just faintly cool beneath your fingertips as the air around you settles like silk. Historians still debate whether some of these Qanat-fed wind towers were used strictly for comfort or also to preserve food. There are fragments of stories, half recorded, half inferred, about cellars where fruits lasted longer than they had any right to. Some scholars argue this was an intentional early refrigeration system. Others say it was coincidental. The truth is, as always, somewhere in the wind. What we do know is that these technologies, while developed to survive harsh climates, also wove themselves into the cultural rhythms of life. You begin to hear it in the background. The quiet splashing of water from a central fountain, the rhythmic sweeping of a courtyard floor, the low rustle of cotton curtains stirred by the faintest breeze. Every architectural choice doubled as an environmental response. There's something poetic about that, isn't there? Today, we think of comfort as something we buy. Air conditioning, space heaters, filters, fans, plug it in, turn it on, forget how it works. But here, in ancient Persia, comfort came from design, from knowing your landscape, your materials, your wind patterns, from watching where shadows fell in the afternoon and where the breezes passed at night. You stroll now through the shaded corridor of a madrasa, its classrooms open to the breeze. Students sit cross-legged on mats, their voices low, reading by filtered light. The badgir looms quietly overhead, keeping the air fresh. You can almost hear the teacher explaining how airflow drops pressure, or maybe comparing the design to a natural lung. Persian science was not isolated. It absorbed Greek, Indian, and Arabic ideas and reworked them with stunning originality. These wind towers were not isolated features. They were the architectural breath of a living city. And for your fringe fact this time, there are some who claim Badger-inspired technology may have influenced later designs in the Islamic world and beyond. There are vague architectural echoes in North African rooftops, Andalusian towers, even in some Mughal palace features. Did the knowledge travel with traders, with architects, or did it emerge independently in similar climates? Historians still argue whether this was cultural diffusion or convergent innovation. You reach the end of the corridor now and find yourself in a garden. Cypress trees sway slightly, birds chirp in the branches. A small canal runs through the center, fed by that same underground Qanat. The air feels fresher than it should. A whisper of cool lingers on your arms. The sun is dipping behind the clay rooftops, casting a... You walk now into the heart of a bustling city quarter. Not modern, of course, but ancient, crumbling in places, and yet strangely alive. The walls lean in toward the narrow lanes, and colorful textiles flutter from second-story windows. You can feel the wind change direction, ever so slightly, and watch how the air nudges a shutter open here, makes a curtain dance there. It's as if the whole neighborhood breathes together. Wind towers, it turns out, weren't just for palaces or scholarly halls. They were for prisons, too. That's right. Even in places where comfort might seem a luxury, airflow was part of the infrastructure. A well-ventilated prison reduced disease, controlled odor, and, let's be honest, calmed tempers. You find yourself pausing outside one of these old detention houses, peering through the slatted windows. Inside, there's not much to see. Stone floors, iron bolts, simple mats. But up above, a modest badgir stares skyward. It's not ornate. It doesn't have blue tiles or decorative flourishes, but it works. And now you begin to notice them everywhere. Over the communal kitchens where women once stirred thick stews over clay ovens. Over hammams, those traditional bathhouses, where water steamed and voices murmured through the tiled rooms. Over spice shops and cobbler stalls. Even over camel stables. Because when the air itself is your most precious commodity, you don't waste it. One particular bathhouse catches your eye. You slip inside. The floor is damp, warm. Domed ceilings rise above, punctuated by little star-shaped skylights. Somewhere in the center chamber, someone's humming a half-forgotten folk tune. Steam swirls, soft and lazy, but instead of stagnating, it moves. The wind tower above the building creates a natural suction, pulling hot air upward while allowing cooler currents to flow in at ground level. It's passive convection, centuries before modern HVAC systems came along with their vents and thermostats. You sit a moment near the central fountain, watching the steam rise like soft ribbons. The air smells faintly of rose oil and stone. You can see now why bathhouses were considered not just places to clean, but places to relax, socialize, even philosophize. Clean air made clear minds. And now for tonight's peculiar side note. At least one 14th century Persian manual for city planning suggested that a certain class of public toilets should have miniature wind catchers built above them. That's right, medieval bathroom ventilation. Functional, thoughtful, and frankly, more considerate than some fast food restrooms you've experienced in this century. You leave the hammam and continue on, weaving between the clay buildings. The streets begin to open into wider plazas. Here, merchants call softly from beneath wooden awnings. You pass a rug seller lazily brushing dust off a crimson carpet. Then an old man snoring in a shaded alcove, one hand resting on a bowl of dates. Above them, always, the towers. The Badgeir didn't only symbolize good design, they became part of the city's identity. In Yazd especially, the skyline is still marked by their vertical silhouettes. Some say they resemble giant sails turned to catch the wind, or desert lighthouses guiding breezes home. Some were square, some octagonal. A few rare ones were circular, though these were harder to build and less common. The variety told you something about the era, the owner's wealth, even the tower's intended purpose. You spot one in particular that looks different, narrower, angular. It's perched on the roof of what must have once been a merchant's home, and it has small clay pipes running down either side. This was likely part of a dual system, wind above, water below, maybe even connected to one of those qanats you saw earlier. You remember the way the air smelled in that sunken cellar, the way it seemed to hold on to silence, and that leads us to a question historians still chew on. Did Badgeir-style architecture influence wind control systems elsewhere in the ancient world? There are towers in Egypt, features in Mughal India, bits of Spanish architecture that seem familiar. But correlation isn't causation. Ideas travel, yes, but sometimes people facing the same problems stumble on the same solutions. So historians still argue whether these towers were truly exported, or whether ancient climate wisdom simply echoed across distant lands. Still, there's no denying that Persian innovations left their mark. Some modern architects have gone back to the Badgeir, using the concept in energy-efficient buildings from Dubai to California. Passive cooling is having a quiet renaissance, fueled by both necessity and nostalgia. You stop at the edge of a garden now. A breeze drifts through, cooler than expected. You look up and realize it's coming from a nearby wind tower, still working after centuries. A family lives here. A boy chases a chicken across the tiled path, laughing. His grandmother pulls laundry from a low line. The tower murmurs softly above, not needing attention, just doing its job. This isn't lost history. It's lived-in history. You smile again, because something about that feels oddly hopeful. You sit now on a flat rooftop, the evening creeping in, soft and slow. All around you, the sky is turning that particular Persian blue, dusky, streaked with peach and lavender, stretching over a city still dotted with wind towers, like ancient ears raised to listen for the night wind. Below, life continues in that quiet, resilient rhythm. A distant call to prayer, the faint clatter of bowls being rinsed, a rooster protesting bedtime from some stubborn corner of a courtyard. You breathe in deeply. The air is cooler now. The bad gear above your head catches a breeze, and you feel it ripple gently through the clay channels around you, like a sigh of relief from the bones of the house itself. Legacy, you think. That's what lingers here. Not just dust and bricks, but design that lasted because it worked, because it respected the climate, because it didn't try to conquer nature, but instead listened to it. And it's not just confined to history books or postcards from Yazd. Modern architects are once again turning to these ancient ideas. In parts of Iran, sustainable homes are still built with wind towers, courtyards, and thick adobe walls. In Dubai, India, and even Southern California, energy-efficient buildings now quietly borrow from the principles of the bad gear. These new structures often pair solar panels with passive cooling, reclaiming an old truth. Electricity isn't always necessary to be comfortable. Sometimes, patience and placement matter more than power. You picture a sleek, modern school building in the UAE, its clean angles hiding internal shafts that use Badger logic to funnel air. You imagine a greenhouse in Arizona with a wind tower in the center, guiding airflow over water basins. The same principles, the same soothing hush of moving air. But we also lose things. That's the quiet tragedy beneath the ingenuity. Some of the oldest towers have crumbled. Some qanats have dried. Urban expansion and concrete apartment blocks don't always make room for whispering courtyards or slow-moving shadows. In Yazd, though the towers still stand, some are sealed off or purely decorative now. Others are restored lovingly, their bricks patched and re-whitened, still doing what they were built for generations ago. And yet, even the forgotten towers keep watch. You imagine one, half-collapsed, its sides worn smooth by time, standing quietly over an abandoned home. No wind, no voice, just memory in the bricks. You wonder how many hot afternoons it cooled, how many small children slept beneath its breeze, how many hands shaped it before anyone thought to name it. Back in your rooftop perch, you spot a cat slinking along the ledge. It pauses, ears twitching. Then it lies down exactly where the air from the tower falls, a puddle of fur in a stream of invisible wind. Even the animals know. Cool air is sacred. Here's your final quirky fact of the evening. In a few rare cases, especially in parts of central Iran, ancient households buried clay pots in their courtyards filled with salt water. The pots, when cooled by night air, helped draw heat out of the surrounding earth. No one's entirely sure how effective it was. Some say it worked surprisingly well. Others say it was more symbolic than scientific. Historians still argue whether these salty urns were clever hacks or just hopeful rituals. And maybe that's the point. The story of wind towers isn't just about architecture. It's about human stubbornness. Not the loud, defiant kind, but the quiet, slow, clever kind. The kind that looks at an unbearable desert afternoon and thinks, All right then, let's find some shade and invite the breeze over for tea. That's what the ancient Persians did. They welcomed the air in. They gave it a home. And in return, the air cooled their temples, their baths, their cellars, and their stories. You close your eyes one more time. The wind nudges your cheek again. The badger hums softly. No engines, no humming wires. Just the wisdom of brick and sky. And now, as night fully settles over the rooftops of ancient Yazd, everything seems to slow down. The colors fade into deeper blue, and the sounds of the day fall away, one by one. That distant rooster has gone quiet. The footsteps below have become fewer, softer. A breeze rolls across the rooftop, long and cool, curling around you like a silk scarf. You sit with your eyes closed, legs tucked beneath you, the warmth of the sun still lingering faintly in the clay under your hands. There's no need to move, no questions to answer, no messages to reply to. There's just this moment, this gentle hush, and the steady rhythm of air that's been flowing through towers like this for more than 1,000 years. In the darkness, the badger still watches the sky, still listens to the wind, still does what it was built to do, quietly, patiently, without needing anything back. You breathe in through your nose, slow and full. Let it go. You're safe here, in the company of wind and earth and time. Maybe your own space has no adobe walls, no qanats or slatted towers, but tonight, you carry the idea with you. That cool air can be invited, not forced. That sleep doesn't have to be chased. It just arrives, like a breeze caught by a tower, flowing inward, slow and kind. Let it carry you now. Let it pull you downward, deeper, softer. The wind has you.